Hi, and welcome to IBM's Mid-Market Tech Talks. This is the first of the series. We're going to be doing these once a month. So today, obviously, May 6th. Our next one will be on June 3rd. I'll, of course, remind everybody at the end. So thank you for joining us. We're going to do the panel format today. At some of them, we may have presenters, but we decided we want to do a panel first, make it more interactive. Please put your questions in the Q&A. We'll answer them at the end of the session. And today our topic is all about hybrid cloud. And everyone thinks that hybrid cloud is only for the global Fortune 2000, and it's not. Whether you're a global Fortune 2000, whether you're in the mid-size, or even if you're very small, everyone is doing hybrid cloud today. And of course, as you know, from a hybrid cloud perspective, that means part of your data is on-prem and part of your data is off-prem. In fact, I met with the CIO at NYU Healthcare just a couple of weeks ago, and he mentioned that they did a study with the finance team of trying to do 100% cloud, and they looked at the four major cloud providers, including IBM, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, and they found that going 100% cloud was almost 50% more expensive than doing hybrid, because certain workloads, particularly high performance workloads, don't lend themselves well to a cloud infrastructure. So that was just their numbers. That was one experience, but we're hearing that from customers, big, medium, and small, that hybrid cloud is the way to go. Now, when you do that, you've got to make sure that you can seamlessly move data back and forth. And also there is an impact on your IT budget. So we're going to talk a little bit today. We're going to have a guest speaker, Dave Valente, who is the co-founder and CEO of Wikibon SiliconANGLE, leading storage and IT analyst. Dusty Meon, who is a systems engineer at Bell Bank, a financial institution in the mid-market. And then myself, I'm Eric Herzog, and I am the CMO and VP of marketing for the IBM storage division. So we're talking about impacts of hybrid cloud on CapEx and OpEx, high availability, what are the right workloads for hybrid cloud? And of course, the benefit you get when you look at things like enterprise class data services. So being able, for example, to seamlessly move data back and forth to the cloud. Again, we appreciate your time. And now let's get to the questions. So we're going to start with Dusty. So the first question, Dusty, be great if everyone in the audience understood at the high level, what's your storage environment like? How is it built? What does it do? What does it interface? What are the biggest apps, the ones that you really need to worry about? And then what are sort of your overall goals for your storage infrastructure as you move forward?
Sure. Thanks, Eric. So here at Bell, we're like most people, we're, high 90% virtualized. We have two main data centers. We have our primary data center in Fargo, North Dakota, and then we also have a colo in the Twin Cities. And we are, our mission critical core banking application, we just rolled it out on IBM's flash system storage. We converted recently from what we had internal storage that was, something that wasn't highly, not very nimble, wasn't performing, wasn't really covering the security requirements that we needed. So, in a nutshell, that's where we're at. We're within probably 6 weeks of having rolled that out. We're also looking at rolling out cloud or object storage with the cloud object storage product. But yeah, so we're, like most people, we're looking to be able to be more nimble, be able to, time to value, decrease that as much as we can. If you ask the users, it's all about make it scream. And that we can do with our product. But, so eliminating bottlenecks around I/O, storage efficiencies are important. Everybody's being asked to do more with less. So the compression and those types of things, it's reducing, like you talked about with CapEx and things like that. We're having, less expansion with more efficiencies. And And like I mentioned, I touched on security with our core banking application running on internal storage. It wasn't possible for us to use data at rest encryption, which is a requirement for us. So rolling out with the Flash system, we were able to do that and accomplish that regulatory requirement. So, that's kind of in a nutshell where we're at today.
Let me ask one quick follow-up question before I ask Dave a question related to this. What is the total capacity that you have in all your locations? So you've got obviously a disaster recovery location plus, the core banking. So how much capacity do you guys have?
Oh, I think, each site we're probably, 500 terabytes or so.
Okay, great. Well, Dave, you heard Dusty describe, typical mid-market financial institution. You guys do tons of surveys of end users, both big, medium, and small. What are you guys seeing at the high level from storage environment, and any differences from the past years? And what are some of the other end users telling you are their sort of high level goals, particularly in the mid-market or in the financial sector?
Thanks, Eric. You're right. We do a lot of surveys, and I've been in this space for a long time. I spent a long time at IDC, which of course was a mid-market company itself. And I think I'd make a couple observations. I mean, at the simplest level, mid-market customers that I work with, they've always wanted three things out of storage. They want it to be rock solid. They want it to be fast. Dusty was just talking about it's got to scream, and they want it to be cheap. And I would say in general, the industry, including IBM, has done a pretty good job of delivering that. But things are changing. They're evolving, and as we all know, the impact that the cloud has had is a big reason why. And so what I hear is customers increasingly want simplicity. Dusty talked about flexibility. They want to reduce the complexity of deploying, tuning, managing storage, and they want to affect a hybrid strategy, hybrid connections to their cloud of choice. And they really want confidence in that experience. Dusty was talking about security. That is a huge concern, obviously, and it's increasing. So ultimately, especially at mid-sized companies, customers want their vendors, IBM in this case, to really try to take away that underlying complexity of the infrastructure and make that experience safe and consistent, across whatever physical location they're accessing.
Okay, great. So now, Dusty, give us some background about Bell, rough size, where you fit in, and what are some of the challenges and issues that you and your team have had to consider as you're looking for moving to the hybrid cloud? What are the things you're looking at that you're countering in, other than obviously some of the cost issues we've talked about? Give us some background on what you're doing and the IT challenges that are leading to this move to the hybrid cloud.
Sure. Yeah, so here at Bell, we started back in, or the bank started back in 1966 as one single location here in Fargo, North Dakota. We've grown now to be one of the largest independently owned banks in the upper Midwest. Roughly a little over $9 billion in assets. We've grown to 30 banking locations across the country with over 60 mortgage locations as well. So we're kind of on a rapid expansion plan. We're North Dakota, Twin Cities, we're kind of the main markets, but now, we're, like I said, all over the country in Arizona, Florida, Illinois, New Mexico and Tennessee, pretty much all over the place, just with a big time growth. So, and the services that we offer, outside of your core banking services, we have a healthcare bank, which provides servicing and operational support for HSAs, healthcare savings accounts. We have wealth management division. I mentioned mortgage. That's a big strategic area for Bell. And then also recently into insurance and equipment finance. So, and at Bell, customer service, everyone offers a lot of the core services, but where we differentiate ourselves is in customer service. And with that, with technologies where they're at, people wanting to be able to bank from their phones or from wherever they're at, that gets to be a challenge to roll out those new services as quickly as possible. And with the hybrid cloud and things, like that allow us, like I mentioned earlier, to be more nimble and be able to, meet those needs quicker, get to market quicker. That obviously keeps customers happy, and that makes us happy as well. So, in order to make some of those changes and roll out quicker, we need to, our dev environment is under a lot of pressure, and being able to refresh that on a regular basis much quicker than we used to be able to, and doing it without outage or downtime to our production environment is very, very important. So, that's kind of that's the biggest challenge for us, is to continue, the rapid pace of change and being able to, spin up those dev environments in order to fulfill those needs. So.
Okay, great. So now, Dave, obviously from your surveys, what are some of the high-level IT challenges that people are seeing, and whether those have been influenced by the recession/pandemic, or even before that started, what were the trends you guys were seeing in all the surveys you've been doing?
Well, first of all, Dusty, I love the growth story. It reminds me of the fictional Mesa Verde Bank and Better Call Saul, for you fans of Breaking Bad, right? The expansion is like, yeah. and that puts huge stress on the IT organization. But I think, Eric, to your question, I think first of all, it's most important for people to understand that this notion of cloud, it's changing, it's expanding, and if there's one thing that the pandemic has taught us, it's the next 10 years, they ain't going to be like the last 10 years. And so, but what I mean by that is, the cloud, you shouldn't think of it as a collection of remote services, out there in the cloud. I mean, rather, it's increasingly moving a model that includes on-prem, public cloud, hybrid cloud, across cloud, and expanding eventually to the edge, where you could even consider, New Mexico and the Twin Cities. That's a form of the edge, and so. You got more processing power than ever before, which is distributed. It's going to create tremendous amounts of data, 10x or more what we create today. So the cloud is becoming this ubiquitous thing comprising all those things that we talked about. And so all of this creates storage needs and dependencies at various levels of the stack that have to be considered in strategic plans. And that's why Dusty was talking about, devs. It's got to be programmable. It's got to be automated, because you can't just keep throwing labor at the problem. It's just too expensive.
Okay, great. So now we're going to go back to Dusty. What are the benefits that you're expecting to see from a hybrid cloud configuration? Not just the financial benefits. How's it going to change the workflows? What's it going to mean to the application base? And, will there be any impact, do you think, especially at these edge locations that you just described? Because it sounds like you've talked about a lot of expansion out of your core geography. So now you're managing, remote locations in Arizona from Fargo. So what are the benefits you're looking to see from this new configuration?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, not just financial benefits, but in my case, like I've mentioned in the first two questions, probably is just being able to respond quicker and roll out, get these new environments up as quick as possible. So I mentioned earlier about the ability to refresh our dev and test environments. Well, before the flash system, we would have to take a 3 to 4 hour outage on our production system to take a backup, and then restore that into dev environments and things like that. Now with the flash systems and the flash copy technologies, we can do that without an outage. We can do it more often. And, other benefits of that is, we're able to take full system backups much more frequently than we were in the past, without having to incur the production outage. And then also, integrating in, various scripting and such, so that we can, I didn't mention earlier, but we are a Mimics replicated environment between those two data centers, and that's all well and good and works real well. But, you can also replicate problems with that. So, if we can use flash copy to, for point-in-time snapshots for CDP and things like that, hopefully then that'll lead to us, being able to decrease our RPOs and things like that in times of, hopefully no disasters, but, hope for the best and plan for the worst. So it's, those are some of the benefits, like I said, just minimizing any kind of outages to our production environment. Anytime you have to take that down, well, then, balances aren't available on your phone and things like that. So, and then, of course, on top of everybody's mind, right, is security, and then, business continuity. So those are some of the biggest things on top of our minds.
So now, Dusty, just as a follow-up, obviously you're encrypting now with your flash system. Have you guys had any malware or ransomware attacks on your side? Because I know the banking sector tended to be extra secure, but even recently during the pandemic, the University of California Medical Center, which was doing pandemic research, actually got held for ransom. So as the idea of all the encryption you're going to be able to do, and I assume as you know, the flash system will encrypt anything it sends out to hybrid cloud. Has the encryption been a benefit? Has there been any malware ransomware attacks yet for Bell Bank?
No, we knock on wood, we haven't been attacked yet. So I mean, it's a daily battle. Security is everybody's job, and it's ever evolving. So, but yeah, to this point, we haven't.
Okay. So Dave, obviously, you do the surveys. When you're doing the surveys, and I know you do big, medium, and small, so you've got that breadth. And you also, I know that your surveys are also non-US, so I do think that's a good input to get a global perspective too. What are the key 3 or 4 benefits when you do the surveys, the end users saying they expect from going to a hybrid cloud configuration? What do they see as the top 3 to 4 benefits that you see from your survey work that you guys do?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So we have a survey partner called ETR, Enterprise Technology Research, and they do surveys every quarter of about 1,500 CIOs and IT practitioners around the world. And the survey data that we see, and also the anecdotal evidence from the Cube TV, my other job here, it tells us a few things. First of all, the data is very clear that hybrid is gaining momentum, whether it's Red Hat with OpenShift, or by the way, even OpenStack in the data shows upticks, and that's really because of telcos. Telcos are building out their own clouds. Obviously, You see VMware in there as well. And we're seeing, so customers across the board are adopting hybrid strategies. There's no question about that. Large, medium, and small, US, non-US. Second, as it relates to OpenShift, and specifically, the attraction is that openness, the open ecosystem, the programmability, the flexibility, and we're seeing clear confidence that IBM and Red Hat are going to continue to innovate with the help of that open community. And I think the third thing we see is everyone trying to get hybrid right. And what that means is, specific to your question, is figuring out the right workload mix, what to move into the cloud, what not to touch, what value they can create through hybrid models. And be happy to talk about that more.
Okay, great. So Dusty, obviously one of the key things that everyone's focused on these days, you mentioned it yourself, has been cost savings, right? Having to do much more with less. So as you move to the hybrid cloud, and obviously you've seen some cost savings that you've mentioned already with the flash systems you guys have deployed, what do you anticipate will be some of the cost benefit that you guys will get from moving to this new architecture?
Yeah, so like I said, we're in our infancy with the product at this point. But we have, we were able to deploy far less physical storage than we had when we were running internal disk. So, we've already saved. I don't have a percentage to give you, but it's been a game changer in that regard. But a lot of what we're seeing of other tangible benefits are in our our processing, our day-end processing. We had our typical month-end processing was running, roughly 3 hours, and now we've been able to shave that down to 69 minutes. So that's a game changer, just in that regard. In conjunction with that, the data warehouse that runs on these systems as well, and that supports much of the business, making they want their daily reports and they want them as early as possible. Those were running 90 minutes, now they're down to 30 minutes. So we're probably 60% reduction in outage windows during month end and day end processing than we had before. So, that just opens up other opportunities for us to do more, or different types of services that we can do with that kind of free time, I guess, if you will, during the nightly processing. So, we will have CapEx ongoing like that. We don't believe we'll have to expand nearly as often as we were. But the bigger benefit is, just getting more done in less time.
Okay, great. So that's not just a storage statement. That's actually an operational statement for the other departments, right? That has nothing to do with the storage influenced it, but that's not directly saving on the CapEx or OpEx of the actual storage budget or your IT budget. That's actually OpEx impact in other business lines. So that's good to hear. Good to hear.
Yep.
Well, Dave, obviously, what are the end users saying to you? Everyone is rushing to it. For those that have already done it, what are they seeing as cost savings on CapEx and OpEx over their more traditional IT infrastructure as they've done this movement? What are the end users telling you guys, Dave?
Yeah, and before I answer that, I just want to pick up on the last thing you said about the operational model. And people will tell you, they just put data in the cloud. Okay, fine, that's nice, but the real opportunity is to change the operational model, and there's no reason you can't do that on-prem, and that's what hybrid is really all about, is a change in the operational model. So our data suggests that the answer to that cost savings, whether it's CapEx or OpEx, is it's really workload and use case dependent. You can put your website in the cloud, of course, and the SaaSification of business, that's more cost effective as a remote service, CRM, HR, whatever. But there are so many situations with core systems where hybrid is just making a lot of sense. And it's not just pure savings on CapEx and OpEx. That's obviously really important, but it's also what capabilities you can add with hybrid and that you maybe couldn't before. And because now it's becoming cost effective. So you see the public cloud vendors, IBM included, they've given us a gift by building out all this infrastructure, billions and billions of dollars in infrastructure investment. So now it can be really cost effective to leverage the public cloud to create another layer of data protection, for example, or be an arrow in the quiver. You mentioned ransomware protection before, or use some of those great cloud services for AI modeling that might take data from my core systems, put it into a hybrid model, maybe bits and pieces, maybe give me temporary flex capacity. All of these things would be much more expensive, or maybe even impossible without a hybrid model.
Okay, great. Well, Dusty, as you know, IBM supports all the aspects of a hybrid cloud deployment, right? The security, obviously you've mentioned the agility, what we've done from containers, and others. So, when you look at what you deployed already and what you're thinking of doing, what are sort of the top 2 or 3 things that come to mind as being real important with what the IBM storage has delivered to you as you move down this hybrid cloud journey?
Sure. So, clearly the first thing it has to do, it has to perform, right? If it's not performing, a lot of the customers it could just as well be offline. So performance is key. And I've probably hammered on it over probably too many times today, but agility is one of the things that that's just been a game changer. That's extremely important for us. And then I would probably, security, I guess you could all, 1A, 1B, and 1C, all of those things. But, those are probably the things that are the most important to us. And then, of course, the key to that whole statement is IBM supports, right? And, through the 26 years or so that I've been in the business, IBM does have, I'll toot your horn a little bit. The IBM support model is, it's one of, if not the best, kind of the, you guys are the leader in that area. So, it's, things do, unfortunately things do happen, and to have that support arm is incredibly important. So.
Okay, great. Dave, you've talked to everybody. You're all over the world, big, medium, and small. And obviously, I know people ask you guys to do some consulting. So what do you guys suggest as what are the sort of 2 or 3, 4 success points that you tell people to focus on as they go down to this hybrid cloud deployment model? What do you tell them are the 3 or 4 things that they should be seeing to say, yeah, we got a winner here? What are those things that you're advising the end users on, Dave?
Yeah, and Dusty was just talking about agility is so key. And anybody who's experienced it understands it. It might not be a CapEx saving directly, but boy, does it change the operating model. And I think when you look at the survey data, containers are off the charts. So that seems to be a pretty critical first step in modernizing applications and setting up this multi-cloud, hybrid cloud vision that we were talking about earlier. It's not the complete be-all, end-all, but it's definitely a catalyst to changing that operating model and affecting that agility. And again, this is where we see Red Hat OpenShift as a pretty key cog in the wheel because of its ubiquity and the trust that Red Hat has built up with the open source and enterprise tech communities. You add in IBM, Dusty was just talking about, your capabilities and, the big blue blanket, I call it. So, you look at that, you'd have to handicap that combination as one of the favorites in the race to win that architectural battle for hybrid cloud. But I think the key there is what workloads, what's going to give you the best business value? Where can you create value add for your business, shifting your IT labor costs into more strategic things? We always used to talk about digital transformation before the pandemic. Well, the forced march to digital has made digital transformation real. And so you have to automate. You can't do it with labor, and you can't do it by provisioning LUNs. That's not value add. You've got to do it by investing in other areas in the business.
Okay, great. Well, I want to thank you guys very much. This has been a very interesting discussion. We appreciate all the time, but we do have a couple questions. So first question, Dusty, what are the core banking applications you use, and which ones of those do you think you're going to be able to leverage from a hybrid cloud configuration? What are the top 2 or 3 core banking apps that you're using?
So our core banking app is Fiserv Signature, and we use in conjunction with that we have Aperio, and those are probably the big ones for the retail arm, if you will. Right now we are on-prem with Signature. I think, when we talk about, being able to leverage the cloud, I think that right now, I think we're looking other areas for that for the time being, with maybe things like document management, security video, things like that. But, for the time being, we look to keep the actual Signature on-prem at the moment.
Okay. Second question is more of a Dave question. Dave, when you look at companies on the small, the medium, and the large, roughly how many different clouds do they tend to use? They all use 6? Is the bigger the companies use more? What are you seeing when you look at big, medium, small companies? How many clouds are companies tending to use as they go hybrid?
Yeah, so part of that answer to that question is do you consider SaaS a cloud? If you do, I mean, you're literally talking about, even in the small companies, you're talking about at least 4 to 6 clouds, at least. I mean, if you want to narrow it down to infrastructure as a service only, then it's maybe 1 to 3, right? But there's no question that, and I would say, it's at least that 4 to 6 range, and then when you put in all the other SaaS products, it's much higher. So yeah, there's a lot of increased complexity. The more things get simple, the more they get complex in our industry.
Great. Well, I want to thank both of you. Those were the 2 key questions. I want to thank the audience again to attending our Mid-Market Tech Talk. Just want to remind everyone that our next one will be on June 3rd. It will also be at 2 o'clock Eastern time. So we look forward to having you. Please spread the word. We'll also be making these available as a podcast. We won't be doing that for about a month, but then we'll have those available so you can let other people know, whether it be your friends, whether it be the business partners you're working with or others. We'll make these available creating a library of information that can be used by mid-market companies. So again, I want to thank everyone again in the audience, and particularly I want to thank Dusty and Dave for all you've done. Really do appreciate it. Thank you very much, and we really do appreciate the time. So with that, we'll close it out. Thanks again, and goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.